The distress signal came at 0300 hours, screaming through the communication arrays like a dying animal. Captain Minho was already awake when it hit, staring at star charts in his quarters aboard the warship Indomitable. He recognized the source immediately. New Haven. His finger stabbed the intercom button before his mind fully processed what he was hearing. The signal lasted 17 seconds. 17 seconds of screaming, weapons fire, and a woman's voice begging for her children to run. Then nothing, just the empty hiss of dead air. Minho had the ship moving within minutes. New Haven was 6 hours away at maximum burn. He spent every minute of those 6 hours trying to raise someone, anyone on the colony channels. The silence grew heavier with each failed attempt. When they arrived, Minho understood why no one answered. New Haven had been home to 20,000 people, farmers mostly, families who had come out to the frontier to build something peaceful. The colony sprawled across a green valley between two mountain ranges, with fields of golden grain stretching for miles. It should have been beautiful. The fires were still burning. Minho walked through the main settlement with his security team, their boots crunching on broken glass and worse things. The colony's central square, where children had played just yesterday, was now a mass grave. The attackers had been methodical, thorough. They had hunted down every person, every family, every child hiding in closets and under beds. Lieutenant Heejan found the colony's data core still intact. Security footage told the story. The Velkrin had arrived in the night, 3 massive raiding ships dropping troops across the settlement. The colonists had no weapons, no defenses. They had trusted the Galactic Council's promise of protection. That promise lay broken in the streets alongside the bodies. Minho recorded everything. Every burned home, every murdered child, every piece of evidence. His crew worked in silence, their faces carved from stone. When they found a schoolroom where 15 children had been killed while their teacher tried to shield them, Heejan vomited in her helmet. No one said anything. There was nothing to say. The Velkrin had left their mark deliberately. Their clan symbols were painted on walls in human blood. This was not just a raid. It was a message, a declaration that humans were prey, and prey did not deserve to live. Minho transmitted everything to Earth, to the Colonial Defense Force, and to Ambassador Jiho at the Galactic Council headquarters. Then he waited for the galaxy to respond with the justice that 20,000 innocent people deserved. The response came 3 days later. Ambassador Jiho appeared on the view screen, and Minho had never seen the normally calm diplomat look so tired. Behind him, the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council stretched out in all its alien magnificence. Thousands of species, thousands of worlds, all united in the pursuit of peace and cooperation. That was what they claimed anyway. The Council has reviewed the evidence from New Haven, Jiho said, his voice carefully neutral. They have scheduled a hearing to discuss appropriate responses. A hearing? Minho could not keep the disbelief from his voice. They murdered 20,000 civilians. What is there to discuss? The Council operates on diplomatic principles, Captain. All actions must be debated and approved by majority vote. The Velkrin have been invited to send representatives to explain their position. Their position? Minho stood up so fast his chair crashed backward. Their position is painted in blood across an entire colony. I know. Jiho's mask cracked for just a moment. I know, Minho, but I have to work within their system. Give me time. Minho gave him time. He gave him 2 weeks while the Council debated and discussed and formed committees. He watched the proceedings from his ship still in orbit above New Haven's corpse. He watched alien diplomats argue about jurisdiction and sovereignty, and the delicate balance of interstellar relations. He watched Orvix, the Thalaxian mediator who led the Council's peacekeeping initiatives, stand before the Assembly and explain how the Velkrin had been pressured by human expansion into their traditional raiding territories and how both sides shared responsibility for the tragic escalation. Both sides, as if farmers and children bore responsibility for their own massacre. The Velkrin representative, a scarred warrior named Kelvoth, did not even pretend remorse. He stood before the Council and explained calmly that the Velkrin way of life required taking resources from weaker species. New Haven had been weak. That was the natural order. He sat down to polite applause from a third of the Council members. When Ambassador Jiho called for military authorization to respond to the New Haven massacre, Orvix countered with a proposal for restorative justice. Humanity should pay reparations to the Velcrin for the stress of being accused. Mediated negotiations would find a peaceful solution. Perhaps humanity could establish a tribute system, providing resources to prevent future Velcrin raids. The vote was called. Military intervention against the Velcrin, 847 against, 1 in favor. The single vote in favor was humanity's own. Minho watched Jiho stand in that chamber, surrounded by thousands of alien representatives who had just told him that human lives did not matter enough to defend. The ambassador reached up slowly and removed the council insignia from his uniform, the golden pin that represented centuries of human diplomatic effort. He placed it on the floor of the council chamber and looked directly at the camera broadcasting to billions of worlds. This council was created to prevent atrocity, Jiho said, his voice steady and cold. Instead, you have chosen to protect those who commit atrocity. You have chosen politics over justice, comfort over courage. So be it. Humanity came to you seeking help for our dead. You offered us paperwork and excuses. You will get neither our cooperation nor our compliance from this day forward. Jiho walked toward the exit. Orvix called after him, warning that leaving the council would mean isolation, economic hardship, the end of human participation in galactic civilization. Jiho stopped at the doorway and looked back at the assembled thousands. The galaxy was warned, he said quietly. Humans don't negotiate with killers. He left. The chamber erupted in chaos behind him. Minho received new orders within the hour. Return to Earth immediately. Full military mobilization authorized. Every human warship, every colonial defense force, every reserve unit was being called up. Humanity was going to war, not with the Council. The Council did not matter anymore. Humanity was going to war with the Velcrin, and they were going to fight alone. As the Indomitable turned away from New Haven's grave, Minho looked back at the ruined colony one last time. He had memorized the names of all 20,000 dead. He would carry them with him into battle. They deserved to be remembered. They deserved justice. The Council had failed them. Humanity would not. The recall happened faster than anyone thought possible. Within 24 hours of Jiho walking out of the Council chamber, every human ambassador, trade representative, and peacekeeper received identical orders. Come home. No explanations, no negotiations, no delays. Come home now. On stations across the galaxy, humans packed their belongings and left. Some of their alien colleagues threw farewell parties, uncomfortable with the sudden departure but not understanding the fury driving it. Others watched in nervous silence, beginning to realize that something fundamental had changed. Admiral Do-hyun stood in the command center on Luna Station, watching the tactical display as humanity repositioned for war. He was 63 years old, gray-haired and scarred from 4 decades of service. He had fought in the border wars, the pirate suppressions, and a dozen smaller conflicts. He thought he had seen everything war could offer. Then he saw the footage from New Haven and he learned he had been wrong. There was always something worse. Task Force Vengeance is ready, Admiral, his aide reported. Captain Minho is requesting permission to begin operations. Do-hyun studied the star maps. 30 human warships arranged in 6 hunter groups, positioned along every known Velcrin raiding route. It was not enough to invade Velcrin space, not yet, but it was enough to send a message. Permission granted, Do-hyun said. Tell Captain Minho the rules of engagement are simple. Any Velcrin military vessel is a legitimate target. No warnings required. No surrender accepted. No survivors, the aide hesitated. Sir, that goes against every treaty we signed with the Council. We're not in the Council anymore, Lieutenant. Do-hyun's voice was flat, and the Velcrin gave no warnings at New Haven. They accepted no surrenders. They left no survivors. We're simply treating them the way they treat others. News of humanity's mobilization spread through the galaxy like a shockwave. Trade routes that had relied on human cargo ships for centuries suddenly went quiet. Mediation services that humans had provided collapsed overnight. The carefully balanced web of galactic commerce shuddered and began to tear. Intelligence Officer Soman worked 18-hour days in her office deep inside Luna Station, analyzing every scrap of data they had on the Velcrin. She was 32 years old, brilliant, and absolutely focused. Her sister had lived on New Haven with her husband and 2 children. Soman had identified all 4 bodies personally. What she found in the intelligence archives made her sick with rage. Admiral, you need to see this, she said, bringing her findings to Do-hyun's office. She laid out reports, incident files, and intercepted communications. The Velkrin have attacked 47 different colonies over the past 10 years. Not just human. Tarneshi, Quelon, Bravax, even some council member species. Thousands dead. The council knew. They always knew. Do-Yun read through the files, his jaw tightening with each page. Why did they do nothing? The Velkrin have allies on the council, Soman explained. Species that benefit from their raiding, buying stolen resources at cheap prices. And Orvix has a philosophy that intervention causes more violence than it prevents. So the council writes reports and forms committees while people die. She paused. New Haven was just the most recent. It won't be the last unless we stop them. Then we stop them, Do-Yun said simply. The first battle came 6 weeks after New Haven. Captain Minho's task force detected a Velkrin raiding fleet returning from an attack on an independent mining station. 15 ships, cargo holds full of stolen equipment and captives. Minho did not hesitate, did not call for surrender, did not offer mercy. The human ships came out of hyperspace already firing, their targeting systems locked, their weapons synchronized. They had spent 6 weeks training for this exact scenario. The Velkrin, confident in their superiority, barely had time to raise shields before the first missiles struck home. The battle lasted 12 minutes. Minho used tactics the Velkrin had never encountered. Drone swarms that moved like living things. Overwhelming point defense systems. Kinetic weapons that struck with the force of small meteors. Electronic warfare that turned the Velkrin's own systems against them. But the most effective weapon was psychological. As each Velkrin ship died, Minho broadcast the same message on all frequencies. Images from New Haven, the murdered children, the burned homes, the dead families. He wanted the Velkrin to know exactly why they were dying. He wanted them to feel the fear their victims had felt. When the last Velkrin ship went dark, Minho activated the emergency locator beacons on all the debris. Then he broadcast one more message. This is the price of New Haven. We are coming for the rest. Run if you want. Hide if you can. It won't matter. We will find you. We will end you. This is human justice. The message reached the council within hours. So did the tactical data from the battle. The galaxy was suddenly paying very close attention to what humanity could do when pushed. 3 days later, Orvix himself contacted former Ambassador Jiho. The conversation was recorded and later became famous across human space. Ambassador Jiho, the council has reconsidered its position, Orvix said, his translator making his voice sound smooth and reasonable. We are prepared to authorize limited military action against the Velkrin, provided humanity agrees to specific operational parameters and resumes its seat on the council. Jiho was silent for a long moment. He was sitting in his apartment on Earth, looking out at the Pacific Ocean. He looked tired. He looked 10 years older than he had before New Haven. You want us to come back? Jiho said finally. After you told us our dead children didn't matter? After you suggested we pay tribute to their murderers? After you voted 847 to 1 that human lives are worthless? The council operates on principles of consensus and measured response, Orvix replied. We cannot simply react emotionally to every tragedy. Every tragedy? Jiho's voice went cold. You mean every massacre? Every atrocity. Every time someone weaker gets slaughtered by someone stronger. That's not tragedy, Orvix, that's murder. And the council protects murderers. We maintain galactic peace. No. Jiho stood up, his hands clenched at his sides. You maintain galactic comfort? Peace for the powerful, safety for the strong. The weak can burn, as long as it doesn't disturb the comfortable. Well, humanity was weak once. We remember what that feels like. We remember when we were prey, and we swore we would never let it happen again. Not to us and not to others if we could prevent it. This attitude will lead to isolation. Orvix warned. Humanity will stand alone. We already stand alone, Jiho said. We stood alone when we asked for your help and you offered us committees. We stood alone when we showed you our dead and you blamed us for being in the way. You taught us that the council is worthless, Orvix. Thank you for that lesson. Now we know who we can trust. And who is that? Ourselves. Jiho looked directly into the camera. Here's humanity's position. We don't negotiate with killers. We don't negotiate with those who protect killers. The council chose to protect the Velkrin. That makes you complicit in New Haven. So no, we will not rejoin your council. We will not follow your operational parameters. We will not ask your permission to defend ourselves and seek justice for our dead. He ended the transmission.
Oh wait, I should go back, right?
The council met in emergency session that night. They debated humanity's threat to galactic order. They discussed sanctions and isolation. They talked about everything except the one thing that mattered. 20,000 people were dead and they had done nothing. Meanwhile, Task Force Vengeance jumped to its next target. There were more Velcrin to find, more justice to deliver, and humanity had all the time in the world. 6 months after New Haven, humanity was unrecognizable. Every industrial world had converted to war production. Factories that once made farming equipment now produced missiles. Shipyards that built cargo haulers now constructed warships. On Earth, Mars, Europa, and 100 colony worlds, the forges burned day and night. Engineer Hejan led a team of 300 scientists at the Olympus Research Complex on Mars. She was 40 years old, brilliant and driven by a fury that never seemed to fade. Her daughter had died at New Haven, buried in a school that collapsed when Velcrin weapons tore through it. We need weapons that scare them, Hejan told her team. The Velcrin respect only strength and fear only death, so we give them death in forms they can't imagine. Her team developed hunter-killer drones that could think, adapt, and learn, weapons that turned enemy shields into bombs, electronic viruses that spread through entire fleets, turning ship systems into executioners of their own crews. They were not just building weapons, they were building nightmares. Admiral Do-hyun approved every design without hesitation. The old man had changed too. His hair had gone completely white in 6 months. He slept 3 hours a night when he slept at all. He spent every waking moment coordinating the hunt, tracking every Velcrin ship, planning every strike. They made this personal, he told his staff. They wanted us to be afraid. Instead, they taught us to be relentless. Captain Minho had become something of a legend. His task force had destroyed 17 Velcrin raiding parties in 6 months. Not a single Velcrin survivor, not a single warning given. His crews were efficient, professional, and absolutely merciless. Other human commanders studied his tactics and copied them. The Velcrin stopped broadcasting their movements. They stopped bragging about their raids. They started running when human ships appeared on their sensors, but running was not enough. The Velcrin leadership finally understood the threat they faced. This was not a punishment raid or a limited response. This was extermination. Humanity intended to hunt down every Velcrin warrior, every raiding party, every ship that had ever attacked civilians. In desperation, the Velcrin did something their pride had never allowed before. They asked for help. Velcrin High Commander Kelvoth appeared before the Galactic Council with a formal petition for protection. He stood in the same chamber where he had justified the New Haven massacre 6 months earlier. Now he begged for the Council to save his people from human vengeance. The humans are conducting genocide, Kelvoth declared. They attack without warning, accept no surrender, and show no mercy. They have destroyed 37 of our ships and killed thousands of our warriors. This is not justice. This is extermination. The Council must intervene. Orvik seized the opportunity. He had been embarrassed by humanity's departure and the collapse of Council prestige that followed. Now he saw a chance to reassert control. The Council cannot allow any species to act as judge, jury, and executioner, Orvik announced. Humanity's actions, while motivated by understandable anger, have crossed the line into war crimes. Therefore, I propose the Council authorize a peacekeeping mission to Velcrin space. We will position Council forces between the Velcrin and human fleets, creating a neutral zone that neither side can violate. The proposal passed with strong support. 15 Council species pledged warships to the peacekeeping mission. Within 2 weeks, a fleet of 137 ships from 12 different species assembled near Velcara Prime, the Velcrin homeworld. When Admiral Do-hyun learned of the Council fleet, he called an emergency meeting of all human commanders. The meeting included every ship captain, every task force leader, every officer with command authority. Over 300 people connected to the secure channel. The Council has chosen to protect the Velcrin, Do-hyun said without preamble. They claim neutrality, but there is no neutrality between murderers and their victims. By standing between us and justice, they become accomplices to every crime the Velcrin committed. What are your orders, Admiral? Minho asked. He was speaking from his ship, somewhere deep in Velcrin territory. Do we engage the Council forces? No, Do-hyun said firmly. We will not fire first on council ships. We are not the aggressors here. But if they believe they can stop us with a blockade, they are badly mistaken. Humanity will reach Velcara Prime. We will capture the Velcrin leadership. We will hold them accountable. The only question is whether the council is stupid enough to die trying to prevent it. He paused, looking at each face on the screens. I want this recorded and transmitted on all frequencies. The galaxy needs to understand our position clearly. Do-hyun began speaking, his words calm and measured. This is Admiral Do-hyun of the Human Defense Fleet, broadcasting to all council forces and to any species listening. Humanity did not start this war. We came to the council seeking justice for 20,000 murdered civilians. The council refused. They offered us paperwork and excuses. They told us to accept that our children were dead and move on. They told us to pay tribute to the killers. His voice hardened. We refused. We chose justice over comfort, action over bureaucracy. We hunted down those who attacked us, and we will continue hunting until every Velcrin leader who authorized attacks on civilians is captured or dead. This is not negotiable. This is not subject to council approval. This is happening, he leaned forward. To any council ship planning to interfere, we will not fire first. But if you position yourself between us and our objective, if you actively work to protect mass murderers from justice, you become complicit in their crimes, and we will go through you. Not because we want to, not because we hate you, but because nothing will stop us from reaching Velcara Prime. Nothing. Consider carefully whether you want to die for the Velcrin. The transmission ended. Within hours, it had been broadcast on every channel, translated into every language, heard by billions across the galaxy. Commander Ji-won received the order to test the council's resolve. She was 38 years old, a veteran of the border wars, and absolutely fearless. Her task force of 8 ships approached the council blockade around Velcara Prime 3 days after Do-hyun's transmission. The council fleet commander, a Tarnishi admiral named Voxlin, immediately hailed her. Human vessels, you are entering a council-protected zone. Turn back immediately or we will be forced to engage. Ji-won did not respond. Instead, she ordered her ships to power down their weapons completely. Then she had them drift forward on momentum alone, engines off, guns cold. It was the most passive-aggressive military maneuver in history. The council fleet panicked. They had expected aggression, a show of force, something they could respond to with their own show of force. Instead, the human ships drifted toward them like ghosts, weapons dark, clearly non-threatening but also clearly not stopping. Human commander, respond immediately, Voxlin demanded. Power your engines and turn back. After 5 minutes of silence, Ji-won finally opened a channel. Her voice was perfectly polite. Admiral Voxlin, our weapons are offline. We are coasting on momentum. We pose no threat to your ships. Why would you fire on unarmed vessels peacefully navigating open space? You are entering a restricted zone. Restricted by whose authority? Ji-won asked. We left the council. We don't recognize council law. Velcara Prime is not council territory. So please explain by what right you restrict our movement. Voxlin had no answer. The council's legal position was weak and everyone knew it. They were protecting a non-council species from another non-council species in neutral space. Their only claim was moral authority, and that had died at New Haven. The standoff lasted 8 hours. 8 hours of human ships drifting slowly forward, while council ships tried to figure out what to do. They could not shoot unarmed vessels without looking like the aggressors. They could not physically block the human ships without risking collision. And with each passing hour, more human ships arrived, all following Ji-won's example, all drifting silently forward with weapons dark. Finally, Voxlin blinked. He ordered his fleet to withdraw to a higher orbit, claiming they were establishing a better defensive position. Everyone understood the truth. The council had backed down. Ji-won powered her weapons back up and proceeded to Velcara Prime. The siege of the Velcrin homeworld had begun. Rather than orbital bombardment, Admiral Do-hyun ordered a ground invasion. He wanted Velcrin leadership alive to face trial. The assault began at dawn, with human dropships carrying 20,000 soldiers to the surface. The Velcrin fought hard. These were the warriors who had terrorized dozens of colonies, who had never met an enemy they could not overwhelm. But they had never fought professional human soldiers with advanced weapons and centuries of hard-learned military doctrine. The battle for Velcara Prime lasted 2 weeks. When it ended, Humanity held the planetary capital and had captured every member of the Velkrin High Command. Not one escaped. Not one died fighting when capture was possible. As human soldiers led Kelvoth and his commanders into restraints, the scarred Velkrin warrior looked at his captors with something like understanding. "You fought like we fight," he said, without mercy, without hesitation. "No," said the human commander, securing his bonds. "We fought nothing like you. We fought soldiers. We followed rules of war. We took prisoners when possible. You murdered farmers and children. There is no comparison." The trial began on a cold morning at Luna Station, in a courtroom built specifically for this purpose. The room was circular, with seats for observers rising in tiers around the central floor. Cameras broadcast everything to thousands of worlds across the galaxy. This would be public. This would be transparent. The galaxy would see exactly what justice looked like. Prosecutor Hanna stood in the center of the courtroom, looking at the 47 Velkrin leaders seated in the defendant section. She was 52 years old, had been a colonial judge before New Haven, and had lost her son, daughter-in-law, and 3 grandchildren in the massacre. Her voice was steady as she opened the proceedings. "This tribunal is established under human law to try the defendants for crimes against humanity and crimes against peace. The charges are mass murder, genocide, and systematic attacks on civilian populations. The defendants will be given every right to defend themselves, to call witnesses, and to present evidence. This will be a fair trial, which is more than they gave their victims." The evidence took 3 weeks to present. Footage from New Haven, showing Velkrin warriors hunting down children, testimonies from survivors of other raids describing how their families were killed, communications intercepts proving the Velkrin leadership planned and authorized every attack. The data was overwhelming, brutal, and undeniable. The defense attorneys, appointed by the court and mostly human themselves, did their best. They argued that the Velkrin were following their cultural traditions. That raiding was their way of life, practiced for thousands of years. That they could not be judged by human standards. Hanna destroyed those arguments methodically. "Culture is not an excuse for murder," she said during her closing argument. "Tradition does not justify butchering children. Every species has the capacity to choose between right and wrong. The defendants chose wrong repeatedly, systematically, and without remorse. They are guilty. The evidence proves it beyond any doubt." The judges deliberated for 2 days. When they returned, their verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all charges. Every defendant. Every count. The sentencing took longer. There were calls from some quarters for execution, for matching the Velkrin's brutality with equal force. But Admiral Do-Yun had been clear about humanity's position. They were seeking justice, not revenge. There was a difference. Each Velkrin leader received life imprisonment without possibility of release. They would spend the rest of their lives in isolated confinement, thinking about what they had done. Their people would be free to rebuild their civilization under strict oversight. Humanity would station monitoring posts throughout Velkrin space to ensure no more raiding fleets launched. The message was clear. The civilization could continue, but the crime stopped now. Kelvoth stood for his sentencing without expression. When asked if he had anything to say, he looked directly at Hanna. "You think you are different from us. You think you are better, but you hunted us with the same ruthlessness we hunted others. Your hands are bloody too." "Yes," Hanna said quietly. "Our hands are bloody. We killed your warriors, your soldiers, those who attacked civilians. But we did not kill your farmers. We did not kill your children. We did not bomb your hospitals or burn your schools. We made war on those who made war on innocents. If you cannot see the difference, that is why you are standing where you are." The trial ended. The sentences were carried out. The Velkrin leadership disappeared into human prison facilities, and the galaxy turned its attention to what came next. The Galactic Council was in chaos. The trial had been watched by billions, and many species had seen their own grievances reflected in the testimony. The Tarnishi remembered raids the Council had ignored. The Bravax remembered lost colonies. The Quellan remembered pleas for help that went unanswered. Orvix called for sanctions against humanity. "They have violated every principle of galactic law," he declared before the Council. They conducted unilateral military action, invaded a sovereign world, and held trials without Council oversight. "If we allow this precedent to stand, chaos will follow." Every species will feel empowered to seek their own justice, to ignore council authority. The unity we have built will collapse. The vote was scheduled for the following week. 273 council members pledged to support sanctions. It looked like humanity would be declared a rogue state, cut off from galactic trade and cooperation. Then something unexpected happened. Ambassador Kyungmi had been appointed as humanity's new representative for external affairs after Jiho retired. She was 39 years old, sharp as a blade, and absolutely unafraid of the council. On the day before the sanctions vote, she sent invitations to every species that had ever been a victim of aggression the council failed to prevent. 47 species sent delegations to Earth. The meeting took place in Geneva, in a conference center overlooking the mountains. Representatives from species humanity had never even heard of came to tell their stories. The Malviks, whose colony had been raided by pirates while the council debated jurisdiction. The Kelon, who lost a generation of children to slavers the council called economically disadvantaged. The Bravaks, whose pleas for military assistance went unanswered because the council feared escalation. The council failed all of us, Kyungmi said when the stories were told. They failed us when we needed them most. They chose bureaucracy over action, politics over protection. Well, humanity is offering an alternative. She unveiled the charter for the Sovereign Defense Coalition. The principles were simple. Every species had the right to defend itself, to seek justice when attacked, and to aid others who were victims of aggression. Membership required no tribute, no surrender of sovereignty, no submission to distant bureaucrats. Just a commitment to mutual defense and justice. We are not trying to replace the council, Kyungmi explained. We are offering a choice. Species can be part of a system that talks about peace while ignoring violence, or they can join us in building something that actually protects the weak and punishes the guilty. 27 species signed the charter that day. Within a month, it was 63. By the end of the year, 112 species had joined the Sovereign Defense Coalition, and half of them were current council members who chose to hold dual citizenship. The council's sanctions vote failed. They simply no longer had the authority to enforce it. Orvix requested a private meeting with Admiral Do-Yun. The old admiral, now nearly 65 and looking every year of it, agreed to meet on neutral ground. They sat in a small room on a trading station at the border between human and council space. You are destroying everything we built, Orvix said without preamble. The council maintained peace for 6,000 years. You maintained the appearance of peace, Do-Hyun corrected. While people died in the shadows, while the weak suffered and the strong prayed. You call that peace. We call it cowardice, and your alternative is what? Permanentva, every species seeking its own justice, fighting its own battles. No, Do-Hyun leaned forward. Our alternative is a galaxy where justice is not negotiable, where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them, where bureaucrats do not get to decide that some victims matter less than others. He paused. The council could have had that. We came to you after New Haven asking for help. You chose politics. You chose comfort. You chose the Velcrin over the victims. That choice has consequences. So this is punishment? No, Do-Hyun said. This is evolution. The galaxy is changing, Orvix. Species are tired of being told to accept injustice for the sake of stability. They want something better. We are giving them that option. The council will never accept your coalition, Orvix warned. The council does not need to accept it. Do-Hyun stood to leave. You can keep your debates and your committees and your endless meetings where nothing happens. The coalition will do the work that actually matters. We will protect those who need protection. We will stop those who prey on innocence. We will build something better than what you had. He walked to the door, then stopped. But here is the truth, Orvix. Deep down you know we are right. You know the council failed at New Haven. You know it has failed thousands of times before. The question is whether you can admit it and change, or whether you will cling to a broken system until it collapses completely. Orvix did not answer. Do-Hyun left him sitting there alone with the question. 2 months later, the first joint coalition military exercise was held. 20 species, including humanity, practiced coordinated defense operations. They were not as polished as council forces, not as experienced, but they were motivated by something the council had lost, the belief that they were actually protecting people who needed protection. Back on Earth, Hana visited the memorial built for New Haven's victims. 20,000 names carved in black stone, reflecting the sky above. She found her son's name, her daughter-in-law's name, her grandchildren's names. She placed flowers at the base of the memorial, as she did every month. "We got justice for you," she whispered. "Not revenge, justice. The people responsible are in prison. The Velkrin will raid no more, and we built something new, something that might prevent this from happening to others." The wind moved through the memorial garden, rustling the trees planted in memory of each victim. Hannah stood there for a long time, remembering the faces of her family. 2 years after New Haven, the galaxy looked nothing like it had before. The Galactic Council still existed, occupying its massive station in the Tertullian sector. Ships still came and went from its docking ports. Diplomats still gave speeches in the Grand Chamber. But something fundamental had changed. The Council now represented only 412 species, down from over 1,000. Its decisions affected fewer worlds each month. Its authority continued to erode like a sandcastle facing an incoming tide. The Sovereign Defense Coalition operated from a dozen stations across the galaxy, with its central command on Luna Station above Earth. 647 species had joined, drawn by the promise of mutual defense and actual action instead of endless debate. Trade flowed through coalition routes. Defense pacts were signed and honored. When threats emerged, coalition forces responded within days, not months or years. Admiral Do-hyun, now 67 and finally retired, lived in a small house in the mountains outside Seoul. He spent his mornings tending a garden and his afternoons consulting for the coalition military command. His hair was white, his back hurt most days, and he slept better than he had in years. Captain Minho, promoted to admiral and given command of the coalition's rapid response fleet, still carried the names of New Haven's victims in a file on his personal computer. He read through them sometimes, remembering why the coalition existed, why they could never allow themselves to become comfortable with injustice. On the Velkrin homeworld Velkara Prime, something remarkable was happening. Dr. Sunho led humanitarian missions there, working with a new generation of Velkrin who were trying to understand what their leaders had done and why it was wrong. Sunho was 41 years old, had trained as both a doctor and an anthropologist, and possessed infinite patience for people trying to change. He sat in classrooms teaching young Velkrin about ethics and the value of life. He worked in hospitals treating Velkrin injured by the war. He showed them through actions that strength could be used to protect rather than prey upon others. "Your leaders told you that taking from the weak was natural," Sunho explained to a classroom of Velkrin adolescents. "They said it was your culture, you're right. But every species has the capacity to choose. Culture is not destiny. You can decide what kind of people you want to be." Some Velkrin accepted this teaching. They joined coalition monitoring teams, working to prevent any resurgence of raiding culture. They studied human philosophy and ethics, trying to build something new from the ruins of what their civilization had been. Others refused. They seethed with resentment at their defeat, at the human presence on their world, at the loss of their traditional way of life. They waited in the shadows, planning and hoping for a day when humanity would be weak enough to attack again. Sunho knew about them. Everyone did, but the coalition's position was clear. They would not punish Velkrin for thoughts or beliefs, only for actions. If the resentful ones started raiding again, the response would be swift and final. Until then, they had the freedom to be angry. "We cannot force them to change their hearts," Sunho told his colleagues. "We can only show them a better way and hope enough of them choose it." The real test of the new galactic order came on a cold morning when a distress signal reached Coalition Command. The Dravine, a powerful predatory species that had always operated at the edge of legality, had launched a full-scale invasion of Kellan Prime. The Dravine expected what had always happened before. The Kellan would appeal to the Council. The Council would schedule meetings and form committees. Months would pass while diplomats debated. By then, the Dravine would have taken what they wanted and withdrawn, and the Council would issue a strongly worded resolution condemning the attack. But the Quellan were coalition members now. The distress call reached Fleet Commander Taeyang at 600 hours. Taeyang was 36 years old, had grown up on a colony world and believed absolutely in the coalition's mission. He had his fleet moving within 2 hours. 30 coalition warships from 6 different species converged on Quellan Prime. The Dravine invasion force, expecting no resistance for weeks, suddenly found themselves facing an organized military response led by humans who had learned their lessons fighting the Velkrin. The battle lasted 3 days. The Dravine fought hard, but they were raiders and bullies not prepared for professional soldiers working together with perfect coordination. When their flagship took critical damage, the Dravine commander requested negotiations. Taeyang's response was broadcast across the galaxy. You can surrender unconditionally and face trial for your crimes, or you can die here. Those are your only options. You have 5 minutes to decide. The Dravine surrendered. The invasion force was taken into custody. The Dravine leadership was charged with war crimes and Quelon Prime was liberated. The entire operation took 6 days from distress call to resolution. The old council had debated similar situations for years. The contrast was not lost on anyone. Dozens more species applied for coalition membership. The council's remaining authority crumbled further. Orvix, still leading the council's peacekeeping initiatives, watched his life's work disintegrate and could do nothing to stop it. 3 months after the Dravine incident, Orvix did something that surprised everyone. He requested a private meeting with Admiral Do-hyun at the retired admiral's home on Earth. Do-hyun received him on his porch, overlooking mountains covered in autumn colors. They sat in comfortable chairs, drinking tea, 2 old men who had once been adversaries. I was wrong, Orvix said without preamble. About New Haven, about the Velkrin, about humanity. I was wrong. Do-hyun said nothing, waiting. I believed that peace required patience, Orvix continued. That if we talked long enough, negotiated carefully enough, we could resolve any conflict without violence. I believed that intervention caused more harm than good, that the council's role was to moderate, not to act. And now? Do-hyun asked quietly. Now I see that my peace was built on the suffering of those too weak to defend themselves. The council maintained order for the powerful while the powerless died. We called it diplomacy. We called it wisdom. But it was just cowardice dressed in fancy words. Orvix looked old, Do-hyun thought. Tired. The weight of 6,000 years of galactic history sat on his shoulders. The Dravine incident proved what I feared to admit, Orvix said. The coalition works. When the Quelon called for help, you answered immediately. You stopped the invasion in days. The council would still be debating it. Those Quelon who died in the first 3 days of the invasion, they would still be alive if they had been coalition members a month earlier. Yes, Do-hyun agreed. There was no point in being diplomatic about it. I came to ask what it would take for reconciliation, Orvix said. For the council to join the coalition, or for the coalition to rejoin the council, or whatever form it would take. The galaxy needs unity, Admiral, but it needs the right kind of unity. Your kind. Do-hyun considered the question carefully. The council can join the coalition, he said finally, but only if it accepts one principle. Never again will bureaucracy and politics protect murderers from justice. Never again will the strong be allowed to prey on the weak while diplomats debate. If you can accept that, if the council can accept that action matters more than procedure, that protecting the innocent is more important than maintaining comfortable relationships with the powerful, then there is a place for you in the new galaxy. And if we cannot accept it, then the council will continue to fade until it is irrelevant, Do-hyun said honestly. The galaxy has seen what the coalition can do. Species that want real protection, real justice, they will join us. The council will be left with only those species too proud or too comfortable to change. Eventually, it will collapse under its own irrelevance. Orvix stood to leave. I will take your words back to the council. I cannot promise they will listen. Many are still angry at humanity for leaving, for proving them wrong. Pride is a powerful force. So is justice, Do-hyun replied. 6 months later, the council voted to dissolve itself and merge with the Sovereign Defense Coalition. The vote was not unanimous. 137 species chose to remain independent rather than join the coalition, but 275 species accepted the merger, acknowledging that the old system had failed and something new was needed. The new unified government was called the Galactic Defense Union. It retained the best parts of the old council, the diplomatic expertise and the vast institutional knowledge, but paired it with the coalition's commitment to action and justice. Orvix was appointed as chief mediator, working under strict guidelines that required actual results rather than endless process. Admiral Minho stood on the bridge of his flagship, the New Haven's Memory, looking at the fleet assembled around him. Ships from 100 different species, all working together under unified command. Humans, Quellan, Tarnishi, Bravax, even a few reformed Velcrin serving as navigators and translators. They were heading to investigate reports of piracy in an unprotected sector, raiders preying on small colonies that had no defenses. Under the old council, such colonies would have been told to file reports and wait for diplomatic solutions. Under the new union, they got rapid response forces that actually stopped the raiders.